North South Connection fans, welcome into Viewers Choice video special edition here for Fastlane 2023. I am JT, joined by, of course, one of the co-hosts of Viewers Choice on the North South Connection, not the tool man, producer Tim Taylor. Also joining us, Mr. Ryan Gray, and our new buddy here, Richie Mars from Retold. And of course, he has his own great stuff he could tell us about as we go along. But we are here to chat Fastlane. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. So I want to ask you a couple of favors. A, to share it around if you're watching and you're like, this is cool, share it. Also, leave some comments in the chat and we'll read them on air. We're going to share your thoughts as well on the show in addition to ours. And then also leave any thoughts about the stream itself. So Fastlane was tonight. It was a pretty tight card. It was only like five matches, I think. It was moved along pretty quickly. I think we'll all thank WWE when we get an under 3 hour show to offset the longer shows that we get in other months. So no complaints there at all. But Tim, do you want to walk us through how the night went, and we'll kind of pepper in some thoughts along the way?
Of course, of course. Well, if you're first time, long time listening to Viewer's Choice, usually you catch this just on the audio feed through the North South Connection podcast feed. But of course, these times they are a changing. And of course, video is always great. So if you're here watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, don't miss anything. There's plenty of content going around. But if it's your first time listening to Viewer's Choice, we kind of give you the must watch, must skip. But I feel like if everybody's watching it here, then I'm guessing you all watched live. So we'll kind of change it up a little bit. But a tight 5 match card. I think everything hit its beats. But if you were living under a rock, you didn't watch everything. An incredible 6-man tag with the new Street Profits, or the new Hurt Business, taking on the LWO. Triple threat match for the WWE Women's Championship with Io, Charlotte, and Asuka. Of course, the tag team match with LA Knight, and John Cena taking on the Bloodline. You had the Undisputed Tag titles, and of course, your main event, Last Man Standing. Richie, I'm going to pitch to you first. You're the fresh meat. You're the new blood. What stood out for you is kind of like a must watch moment or match from this super tight card?
It has to be the opening match for me personally. Ryan and I, we talked about the opening match before in our preview section on the NoSo YouTube channel, and this match really was interesting to me because just from the different storyline directions it can go. Because you have Jey Uso's storyline of him not being the most well-liked guy on Raw due to his past history, Cody sort of being the only guy who's kind of ushering him in, and now you have the conflict with them being the tag team champions that's going to bring Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens into that mix because they're boys with Cody, but now that he has the tag titles, how long is that going to last? And of course, you have Drew McIntyre waiting in the wings, waiting to strike if anything were to go wrong.
Yeah, I second that notion. I think that the opening tag team match for the tag titles, probably your best match in slot for that, and it actually carried. Ryan, I know the super teams have been kind of a thing of, not so much a thing of the past, because you do have the Sammy KO super team, but they kind of felt like an organic tag team to begin with. But I think it's been a little bit since we've had like a actual super team, like a Cody and Jay. Were you at all surprised that those two actually took the titles off of the Judgment Day tonight?
For sure. I know Richie and I both predicted it, but we were kind of optimistically predicting it when it happened. And for actually it to come through, I was good with that. I thought it was an interesting dilemma to kind of have the night before, where we had all the Avengers looking at each other in the two big tag title matches facing off. And then at the end of the night, you get both baby faces triumphing 2 nights in a row. So that's kind of a little weird mix here. Both heel teams perhaps are going to come together down the line and kind of conjoin. And then, so to see the babyface get the shine early here and really become the tag champions is quite the surprising feat, really. Like the whole Cody here's my question to you, Justin. Do you think Cody winning the tag titles taints his story in any way, or we're just good with it? I don't
No,
think so.
of course we're
A
good with
little
it
bit of it,
because
but I think
it's
we're
not
good.
like he's celebrating the moment. It's like, okay, I'm done. I reached the end of my story. Like it's just another chapter in the journey to the end of his story, right? So to me, I don't feel like it taints. It's not like he's a guy that's like never been at that level. Like so to
He
me, and
did.
he's already been presented at a main event level as well. He just main evented WrestleMania. So to me, it's not like this is like, oh, he's in the tag division, because to Tim's point, we're in this little bit of a resurgence of super team era. KO and Sammy were champions forever. I look at them as, even though they're friends and everything, they're like a super team at this point. So to me, Cody and Jay being in that position are both main event guys. They main evented the two biggest shows of the year in 2023 so far. So no, I don't think it taints either of them at all.
Oh, and it's interesting. I like I said, I'm kind of actually shocked when it happened. I popped when it happened. And even though we predicted it, I am still kind of rather shocked that it happened. And I love the directions coming out of it. Like I said, they can veer onto SmackDown and kind of mix it up with them guys. And then they kind of just run Monday Night Raw, gives them something to do leading into the fall seasons here. And it is a little weird, Richie, to have an Uso as a tag champ and not his brother. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, but also it feels like the right direction in a weird way, because with Jay and Cody both
You want to say Jay and Silent Bob, don't you? Because I always want to say it.
It's gonna get some getting used to if they hold the tag titles for long enough. But with Jay and Cody, they're kind of in like similar but different positions, if that makes sense. With Jay, it's all about proving his individuality, and with Cody, it's trying to build his way back up to that bloodline. So while Jay's trying to separate himself from that, Cody is almost kind of gonna try to get back. So I wouldn't be surprised if later down the line you're gonna have more Raw superstars like a Drew McIntyre go to Jay and Cody separately saying, hey, can you really trust your tag partner? Like, right. Cody only brought you here to Raw so he can go to SmackDown to, like, for his own selfish reasons, even though like things would like Cody is always going to try to finish the story, but will he step on other people to get there? That is the big like drama that will happen from this team, in my opinion. And it's also the right move for the Judgment Day, because I feel like the Judgment Day has done all they can do with the tag team titles, even if it's such a short time, because what believable team that we currently have could beat the Judgment Day again, other than Sammy and Kevin? But let's be honest, we've seen that for many, many, many weeks. So how do you do that without it being contrived or forced again and again and again? So I think Cody and Jay are definitely the right move for the short term. For how long they'll be tag champs, we've seen in the Attitude Era, might be a couple weeks, could be a couple months. Only time will tell.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Tim, I think that this reign has like a ceiling on it as of like Survivor Series being in the over/under. Toolman, what would you think?
It's tough, right? Because kind of to Richie's point, and it's kind of been the point of the tag team division for a long time. At least for now, there are tag teams. There's plenty of depth, but it's depth on paper. I don't think that there's many actual possible threatening contenders aside from the Judgment Day, right? You'd have to really build up a team, especially since, kind of talking about the rest of the show, Street Profits were on the short end of the stick against, the LWO. So as a team who may have been on the rise with Bobby Lashley kind of bolstering them up, they're immediately kind of chopped down to size. The Viking Raiders and the New Day have been squabbling in this like lower than mid-card thing. Bashbum 16 on YouTube makes an excellent point in regards to DIY, but even then, DIY is mixed up with Imperium. So they're kind of off to the wayside. They're going to be doing their own thing for at least a couple of months, get us through the Survivor Series, maybe to Royal Rumble. So it's tough. If anything happens with the separation of this sweet life of Cody and Jay, it's going to end up being something where they have to have a misfunction at the junction, right? There has to be something, there's a friction between them that separates the team. And eventually maybe we get Cody versus Jay, but I don't think it's going to be something that's organic where a team comes in and splits them up. But another piece of the puzzle that we haven't talked about yet is the other side of the coin. The damage inflicted during the match to Damian Priest played out later on in the show, where the Judgment Day actually held Damian Priest down, and Mommy basically pulled his punk card and took the Money in the Bank briefcase away from Damian Priest, basically saying, not now. This isn't your chance. This isn't your shot. So, Ryan, what did you think about, Mommy taking control of the reins now that she's always been the de facto leader of the Judgment Day, but now actually being the leader from the happenings of Friday Night SmackDown into tonight's appearance at Fastlane?
Yeah, it's definitely the refocus since her return from the Nia Jax injury. Established right away, opening Monday Night Raw, where she calls out the Judgment Day, calls them out on their bullshit, all the way to SmackDown, where she has her sit-down meeting with Paul, really establishing future plans and trying to get on the same page, perhaps for a War Games match. So she's back with a plan, and it is to set the Judgment Day straight. I think there's a long-term plan where maybe it will elevate her on the other aisle of the fence, or perhaps the other locker room, the babyface aisle. But I think it is a good spot for her, and it's definitely a transition point for the Judgment Day. And I think really put all that Judgment Day juice onto Rhea Ripley is probably the correct direction there, I would think, coming out of it, because she obviously has the most upside out of all the people in the group, not named Dom Mysterio.
Right. JT, to you, did you think that segment with the Judgment Day could have been a red herring, and that there was still a possibility that Damian could have still cashed in, or even if it wasn't Damian they cashed in, with just the thought of Rhea having ownership of the contract now, that they could do some like shifty business and give the contract to somebody else but still have a cash in during that last man standing match?
Yeah, I think both avenues just laid out were definitely possible. Like Priest faking it, comes out, it's a setup, it's a ruse, comes out and cashes in, or Rhea takes it for herself. It's just like, yeah, it's mine now. I'm the dominant member of this team. I'm going to take this from me, and I'm going to go cash in on Io, or hey, cash in on one of the guys. Why not? She's Rhea, right? So I think either path was still in play. Like I think they did a good job of keeping it vague and quick enough to where you could see it either path. Either it's a legit, he's hurt, they're protecting him, or there's a little bit of chicanery going on within the team, or it was a setup for later in the night. So I think like they did a really good job kind of opening all three options in one quick little segment. So, I mean, I do think too, there's a path where Balor and Priest just win the belts back, like on Raw in a few weeks, and then reignite their reign to an eventual DIY taking the belts and ending the super team era. That's usually how these little super team runs go. Like they'll trade among the top dogs for a bit, and then an established team will kind of win the belts that have the cred to win it, and then kind of get back to, okay, the tag teams go for the tag team titles. And I think DIY could be that conduit, to our buddy Jason's point that we just put up a minute ago, given that they both have the credibility to be at that level. They're new, they're fresh again, especially on the main roster. So, or maybe there's another team that could be looking for a revival in their WWE career that could pop up and win those tag titles at any time.
That'd be great, but it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know if we're talking completely in rumor and innuendo. At least their CM buddy is at least out of their contract and actually free. But I think FTR might be locked in contract for at least another year, unless, of course, I saw in one of our numerous group chats. I forget who it was, but somebody said that they might have the Regal clause.
Their boy leaves, they get to leave. I mean, Tony might be looking to save a little scratch, maybe lets him walk,
my brother, he's I want to see him finish out his career somewhere else, whatever.
Right.
Before we throw to
but,
Richie, can I touch
yeah.
on your point earlier, Mr. Toolman, of Rhea taking the briefcase away from Damian, right? Now they couldn't
Right.
be doing some tomfoolery where JD and Finn go cash it in and win the tag belts and pull a double swerve on Priest, and that is a cute little way to get away from the Money in the Bank. We're not getting down that lane, are we? Because it's cute,
I
but I don't
don't
really like it.
know. I don't know at this
It's cute.
point, like, because you also have to think Rhea's pet is Dom.
Or yeah.
So what's to stop her from giving the Money in the Bank to Dom
Well, he
and
won
then
his prize.
having
He proved his
no?
worth.
Look, I have lost faith in the Money in the Bank briefcase, and I'll kind of like pitch it to Richie, but like ever since Austin Theory decided that the brightest idea with a guaranteed contract is to cash it in on the United States Championship,
Yeah.
I have absolute
He knows his
zero
ceiling.
faith.
It's a man that knows his limits right there. He
No,
knew.
then
He
you
knew he had no
find a
chance.
way to lower the ceiling. Like you find a way.
No, Rhea kicking the shit out of the world champion and then calling Dom out and handing it to him and saying, "Here you go." Right? Like that's a fun story right there.
I'm thinking they do this crap in NXT.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I have like the stupidest feeling that like if Rhea has the contract and she gives it to Dom, right? I'm not the biggest Ilya Dragunov fan, but it would be hilarious if Dom were Dommy Two Belts and he cashes in and he's North American champion and NXT champion. He'd be the second person ever to do that with Keith Lee. But I don't know if there's going to be actual chicanery with the Money in the Bank briefcase. But
there's options.
There is options. I think this is just a way of saying, hey, no cash in tonight. But Richie, we talked about the beginning of the show. Let's talk about the main event. Last man standing, first last man standing match since SummerSlam with Brock and Roman and a tractor. So how do you think this? How did you feel about this match, pre and post?
Well, without a tractor spot, I guess you'd call it a step down. But yeah, this last man standing match was fine. It was very good. I think it was the best of the two Shinsuke Nakamura Seth Rollins matches that we've seen. I thought it was very smart of Seth to bring out the tables early so the crowd doesn't do the "we want tables" chant that kind of like muddies things up a little bit. And I thought it was really smart to do the red mist because it was like the visual of Seth Rollins having a crimson mask without actually him blading or anything. So I thought that was a very smart thing for them to pull off. And again, the story was simple to the point, going for Rollins' back injury, making sure he doesn't stay up on his feet for that long. And they kept moving during the counts too. Like if one person's down, somebody else is moving, setting something up just in case they're not down for the 10 count. So they kept the match moving instead of just like waiting and just like letting the ref count, because it's a type of match like the Iron Man match where you have to make sure the crowd is invested in each of the count or else they'll take it off the rails, like we saw with Rollins and Ziggler in their Iron Man match where the crowd just kind of took over, especially with the counting aspect. So I thought they played it very well. They thought of some very creative spots that we haven't seen before, like the double knees off the turnbuckle through the table, the red mist, like I mentioned. The Falcon Arrow at the end did surprise me as the finish, mostly because we haven't seen Rollins win with it that much, but it was still was a really good spot. But I think the crowd sort of halfway expected the cash in. So I felt like it kind of, the pay-per-view ended on a deflated note. But talking about Rollins in general, his World Heavyweight Championship reign has been a very good, strong reign to start off, even though he's not positioned as the guy who will end every show, even though we as fans usually try to correlate the World Heavyweight Championship is the guy who ends every show. So I think he's doing phenomenal as the glue that's kind of sticking that World Heavyweight Championship scene together. And I'm curious to see who would challenge him for it, because it doesn't look like he has a myriad of challengers on the heel side.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
nailed that point, Richie. Like about the not dragging it out and killing time. Like, this was not a dramatic pathos play that we needed to like drag this thing out to 40 minutes, right? And I made a joke early in the show that we loved the sub 3 hour tight. It was Fastlane on a random Saturday, October night. Like Nakamura, great wrestler. Rollins, great wrestler, but this isn't like a big time money match, and we need to play this out. And okay, we'll drag it out 35, 40 minutes, a million counts. I loved it. It was tight. They kept it moving, to your point. And also, sometimes you got to reset expectations. Like, not every last man standing or big gimmick match needs to have some crazy bump or insane finish. Like, sometimes just a big Falcon arrow through a stage is enough, right, to finish a match, and just keep a guy down for 10 seconds. So, like, to me, I like that it was simplistic. Like, this is the time to do that on a show like this. Take your chance to reestablish a little bit of reality into things. We don't always need the tractor and everything else, right?
Yeah, and I'd also want to point out that Michael Cole and Corey Graves were phenomenal on commentary during this match. They really did sell Seth Rollins as pretty much a desperate man trying to cling on to this World Heavyweight Championship, a championship that many people thought when it was first created was the consolation prize championship. And
Yeah,
now
they didn't. They haven't acted like it. No, you're right.
So now Seth Rollins and Nakamura, they ended 2 pay-per-views in a row headlining with the World Heavyweight Championship. So it's gonna take some time still, because we're still in its year of infancy. But as the years go on, we're going to see this championship become more and more on the same level of the championship that Roman Reigns is holding. It will probably take a long amount of time to get it up to that level. But when you have champions like Rollins and challengers like Balor and Nakamura putting out great matches, I think it's only a matter of time before we will start having that conversation.
And they did a great job, like, in this feud, rebuilding Nakamura. I mean, just over the last 3 months, like the vignettes they were doing with him calling out the injured back and, calling out Rollins' family. And I love the way they did it, right? On another show we do here, WWE War, we're recapping the AJ Styles Samoa Joe feud from 2018, right? And they delve into the family stuff. And it was so heavy handed and over the top, right? That it ruined the feud. To me, this was so well done when Nakamura is just using it to, like, pick away at Rollins to try and get in his head. But it wasn't like he's not out there yelling at his wife. Obviously his wife could probably kick Nakamura's ass at this storyline, but he's not out there bitching at the kids. Like, he's just using it to just play head games, because this guy's busted back is legit and he can get in his head. And I thought this did wonders to make Nakamura seem again like the top guy he should be. So I thought that was like a real big, gift out of this as well, was that it wasn't just a throwaway 2-month feud. It was, hey, we to your point, Richie, made Rollins in this title look legitimate. We've had some really good matches, and Nakamura, by the way, has also been rebuilt into a legitimate star.
And it continues that story of Seth Rollins, where Michael Cole had a fantastic send-off line, is how long can Seth Rollins keep up this pace? Yes. That's the overarching story that's been being told since he won the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, will it end with the cash-in, or will it end up with someone gaining an opportunity to finally get Seth Rollins when he's at his weakest? I think so, but he's doing a phenomenal job. Even though Seth Rollins is never going to be viewed as the 1A of the company, he's always going to be 1B. I talked to Ryan about this off air once. He's always going to be in that edge role when Cena at the edge, that Triple H to The Rock kind of deal. Like, he's never going to be seen as the guy in the company's eyes, but he's always going to be that glue that holds that entire work rate together.
Exactly. For those of you watching on Peacock Plus, we're going to pitch to Ryan really quick, but take a look at this sponsorship from Pizza Hut. Nevertheless, the sponsorships were crazy, as always. I think that they're seamless. But getting back to the actual point of the matter, Ryan, it feels like, Fastlane definitely feels like we are starting to ramp up into, Royal Rumble season. Mm-hmm. There's not that many dates between now and then. Saudi Arabia is going to be, your typical Saudi show of just really solid matches across the board. Nothing really of consequence, I don't suspect. Of course, Survivor Series is going to be Survivor Series. We're going to get that War Games match, possibly. If not, it's going to be interpromotional championship matches. So the next big thing of notice is the Royal Rumble. Do you think that possibly the winner of the Royal Rumble is somebody who does take that opportunity to challenge Seth Rollins, who might be the easier pickings for a title opportunity at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I right now I'm putting Gunther right in that spot. I'm hands down. That back's been broken for 6 months, and there's no other lumberjack to break it down better than Gunther right there. Like I said, this is back to Nakamura real quick. If you told me back at WrestleMania, where I'm not even sure if Nakamura was booked, that he would have 2 main events in a row in the fall here in late summer, I would have been, yeah, okay. What is the WWE doing? But you know, he had a pretty decent showing last night, and I thought he was really into his game today. His strikes were crisp. He was constantly in the motion. His mannerisms were tight and like meaningful instead of lazy and whatever he has been the last 6 years. But I just feel like he was super motivated and he lived up to the hype of being in the main event for a second time in a row. Like Richie said, the story of Seth continues, and I don't know if they could make it another 5 months to WrestleMania for Gunther to chop it down, but perhaps. But either way, Seth has done a great job establishing this title again.
Does Gunther need to win the title at Mania though? Like, I think they could. That's something they could do elsewhere on another show and still be as effective. To your point, Ryan, like Rollins gets run ragged and Gunther just kicks the shit out of him. Like, I would love a Vader Sting style just beat down. Like, this guy's busted, he's broken, or a Brock Cena where he just picks apart, wins the title in like an 8-minute squash, and becomes a dominant champion. And you're gonna already have you're gonna have the 2 nights of Mania. One's likely going to be a women's main event or a big celebrity, right? And one's going to be Reigns. So, like, Gunther on the undercard can retain against a top contender as well on that show, whether it's a McIntyre or whoever. So you don't need, I don't think you need to do Gunther Rollins at Mania. I think that's definitely something you could do sooner if you think you can't stretch this Rollins back being injured story all the way to Mania. I do like the idea of Gunther winning the Rumble, but I do think that's, I don't know. I know Ryan and I differ on this. I think it's earmarked for Cody to go back to back and then win a Mania, but that's my thought.
So I think the big caveat is, I think if you slate Gunther for Mania, that gives you the wiggle room to figure out what you do with the Intercontinental title that he still has, right? To have him lose it somewhere in between.
Don't lose it. Give it up when you win the world title. Tournament.
Okay, Ultimate Warrior. I think at this point, Gunther, him giving up the Intercontinental title would possibly be viewed worse than the World Heavyweight Championship being recreated as the gimme belt for Seth, right? Not having somebody to be able to take the title, like how stupid would it have been if Ultimate Warrior didn't beat Honky Tonk Man, right? Honky didn't have somebody to beat.
Mr. Perfect won that tournament, and he's one of the greatest IC champs ever.
Right. To me, though, I feel as though that title needs to be lost and passed to somebody else. And with DIY and everybody in the mix for the Intercontinental title, I feel like it's a big opportunity to move on that. That's an excellent point about LA Knight. I'm a big LA Knight fan. The problem is it depends on how tight they keep the brand split, right? I may have kind of just tipped my hand calling it the bland split, but that's definitely a slip of the tongue. LA Knight's super hot on SmackDown, though. Far away from the Intercontinental title, even farther away from the World Heavyweight title. Of course, a Royal Rumble win actually opens up that door. LA Knight super hot. It's hard to not consider LA Knight to be somebody who could possibly be in that mix for the Royal Rumble. But Richie, to you, is there anything else that really stood out for you on tonight's card across the board?
Well, speaking of LA Knight, he did definitely prove that less can be more when it comes to in-ring ability, because if you look at his moveset, everyone was going crazy for it, but it's a lot of people would call like simple moves. You know, the Russian leg sweep, the DDT, the superplex, the neck breaker. You know, all of these simple moves with theatrics added to it, and the crowd was eating out of the palm of his hands. And to the point of, you know, future Royal Rumble winners, is he a possibility? Sure. Everyone who's in that like realm, like Cody, Gunther, LA Knight, those raising stocks are are a part of those conversations. But with LA Knight, what I see him here, it's amazing because a year ago he re-debuted as LA Knight. And if you listen to the reactions from then to the reactions now, it's night and day. No pun intended.
Oh yeah, no pun.
But where the story's going right now, he is on his way to Crown Jewel fighting Roman. At least that's what I see the story going in. And with the teases with Heyman, with the teases of Solo trying to take care of the problem, but Heyman wouldn't let him because Roman didn't like feel the need to. So it's like one of those things where it's like this guy slipped under the radar, both in real life and in storyline. And now they're gonna have to take care of this problem like one-on-one. And Crown Jewel is such a great place to do it at, because that was probably the first time where they had like one of those press conference events for the Crown Jewel event, and then you hear the whole crowd chanting LA Knight, and he was not a part of a story, he wasn't a part of anything going on in TV.
Late
you
May,
know,
really.
So
my only problem with that, and Ryan and I talked about this on the preview we did, because we previewed that match for the previous series, and LA's to me has got that big RVD 01 vibe, right? Where he's like super over. You want to strike when it's hot. But to me, like, I wouldn't put him in a world title match unless he's going to win the title. So we could do it at Crown Jewel if we're ready to end Roman's reign and crown Knight, unless you're going to screw him. But like the worst possible thing you can do is like Reigns just beats him, I think. I'm not a huge person on wins and losses, and WWE can heat guys back up. But when you have a dude in this spot, like I think having him lose to Reigns, we just did that story with Cody where he lost and now he's trying to get back to it. Like to me, Knight should stay protected until he's going to win, if he's the guy that's going to eventually win. So if you do him and Reigns at Crown Jewel, it's going to be like Bloodline jumps him and it's a DQ screwy finish, which I'm fine with on that show. Like I don't care, but I don't think you can have Reigns beat him. I wouldn't have Reigns pin that guy, because you look at that RVD correlation, he was never as hot as he was that night at No Mercy when he should have won the world title the first time. And I just think you have to hit that moment right.
I see what you're saying. The only thing that LA Knight has that RVD didn't have at that time is the ability to talk, at least like reheat himself back up. Mm-hmm. So even if he does lose to Reigns hypothetically in this match, I do think he has that ability to kind of build himself back up. I mean, look at when Steve Austin was at his height after WrestleMania 13, after the Bret Hart match, they put him in a cold day in hell against The Undertaker. And for a title match right away. He still lost, albeit due to interference, but he still lost, and he still continued to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And like I talked with Ryan when we did the preview match for the tag title match, ever since Cody lost at WrestleMania, it seemed like his reactions are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So a loss doesn't necessarily mean that LA Knight is going to be cooled off substantially. If anything, it's probably going to prove his doubters who are calling him one note in the ring or an attitude or a knockoff.
Yeah, if he goes out and has a banger.
Yeah, if he goes out and has a banger, that proves some more critics wrong. And then you're going to have the people saying, oh, Roman's reign, and I'm sick of it, and I'm sick of it. And that's only going to raise LA Knight's stock up. And I don't think it will ever hinder his crowd reactions, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And to the credit, like they have a bunch of legitimate guys that could end this reign.
That's the other thing too. Yeah,
wild.
You have
like you could. We haven't even talked about Jay. Like you got Jay, LA Knight, Cody, obviously. I mean, you got Rock is in the periphery, right? Like he's out there. So that's like 4 legitimate Mania main event. And then, I mean, we hinted at Punk, right? We didn't mention him by name, but I think you got 5 guys in the next month or so heading into Mania that you could say could legitimately main event that night in Philly and end Roman's incredible reign.
I think it should be Gunther.
And go put him in. I mean, 6. I think you could put him in the list.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on if CM Punk wants to dance in Chicago again. You
There's
know,
no
they're
chance
going to
he'll
be.
He's coming
Now,
back.
definitely wasn't trying to piss Ryan off in the comments section on Facebook. By the way, if you're watching along on YouTube or Facebook, please send those comments in. We'll share them. We'll talk about them and discuss them. But you know, with everything going on in that sort of veil, because there's so many top tier guys, I kind of lean towards JT's point of how many we WWE tested the waters with putting LA Knight in a predominant place in Money in the Bank and not giving him that opportunity. And of course, Triple H, what I see a Punk on the brain because you guys talk about him. But Triple H went into the press conference afterwards and made the line of, you know, it's not for you right now. We'll give it to you give it to you later. But with a guy who's so white hot, whereas Cody came in positioned as the next star, right? While LA Knight has been on the rise. If you put him in another position at that high level and you pull it away from him again, you're poking the bear with the fans, at least in my opinion, of like, it's a fine line between a guy who people are hungry to see become champion or somebody who can't get the job done when put in a position where, like, there's a reason why Cody's only had one opportunity, right?
Uh-huh.
And that was his first opportunity at not having a chance or not nailing his opportunity, right? Everything else he's been involved in, whether it was the feud with Seth or calling a shot at the Royal Rumble, or even tonight, winning the tag titles from the Judgment Day. Cody has always been a guy who's nailed it and crushed it. And I don't think LA Knight has the same equity, the long-term equity with the WWE Universe like Cody does.
I'm somewhere in the middle with all you guys. I think it would be an ultimate test for them to kind of see, what do we have with this guy? Can he overcome a loss? To Richie's point, he can talk himself back. To Justin's point, I don't really want him in the match yet, but it may be the best thing for him if he goes out there, crushes it, and is even more. They give him a finish that absolutely doesn't kill him. And he just kind of grows from it, kind of like Cody has, but with, like, I don't want to say more organic buzz that LA has compared to Cody, because I would think obviously Cody's a bigger star, but could he have more upside as Cody? I'm not sure. He's 5 years older, but he has less wear and tear on that body. And it's not 1989 where you're 40 and it's over. So it's, right. I don't know. It's interesting, but Cody's more of a complete package as a wrestler, character, so on and so forth. But I don't know. LA Knight has the biggest attribute, and that's charisma and personality. So I don't know. I would test the waters and I would protect him, but I don't see him beating Roman and Saudi. And I think all of us.
I think the big thing that LA Knight has over almost everybody else in the WWE right now, with the exception of like Roman Reigns, is he feels like a throwback both in the ring and on the mic to that Attitude Era main event style, right? As Richie said, he doesn't do everything, but neither did Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Neither did The Rock, neither did Mankind. Like, they didn't have to do everything, but what they did, the fans pop. And LA Knight has started adding very like nuanced things that gets the crowd invested, things that he hit, like just the lead into his LA Knight elbow, finally having a lead into that, the scoop power slam. Like, everything is starting to line up to fit in that that old school WWF Attitude Era main event style. And now all he needs is a good walk and brawl, and he'll have it all, right? Where Roman Reigns, at least in my opinion, today, he's mastered that WWE main event style. I don't think there's anybody current day that can do what Roman's doing in that main event type picture one-on-one. The control he has of both like what happens in the ring and and around the ring and inciting reactions. It's very special, and it's the reason why he stayed champion for as long as he has. Not to completely shift gears, but I'm very surprised that we got visual confirmation and visual or eyes on Jade Cargill tonight.
Eyes for sure, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully. It's very, very hard to get Triple H out of a picture, but I can crop and we'll figure it out. But are you guys at all shocked that Jade Cargill's already being pushed, or not pushed, but even being presented on the main roster?
No, I love it because the main roster NXT construct is an internal construct that they've created. Like
Right.
No one says you have to start at a certain place in the world of wrestling, right? Like they've created the theory of NXT for people that they believe need to go to NXT. And for a while, they filtered people through NXT that didn't belong in NXT. And to me, that doesn't mean that has to continue to be the trend. So is she as polished in the ring as some of the women in NXT? Probably not. But did any of them touch her star power? Have any of them been at that level of national television over the last couple of years? And beyond that, I was in one chat last week where folks said, "Oh, they don't do surprises anymore like they used to," and how they should be, treating this as like a surprise debut on a Raw or whatever. And to me, that is the absolute wrong way to think about things, because on a lost third hour of a random Monday Night Raw, or even on a pay-per-view, to debut her, you don't get the organic hype of the type of attraction that she is. She is a classic athletic free agent style signing. Like this is one you hype through Sports Illustrated, through ESPN. Like we just landed this mega athlete that we think is going to be a big time star, and we're going to present her as such, and we want to be excited about it. And we can tell her story better through these channels and then have her appear and start to build the excitement for her to step in the ring. To me, you save the surprises for the established type of veterans that are jumping, like a Cody, right? Like we didn't need the big announcement of Cody because that was a cool moment, and you kind of knew maybe anyway. But with a Jade, she's so new to much of this audience, while also having the presence in the past that people, fans that are more aware would know of. So to me, they went about this the absolute right way. I think they've nailed it. Her taking over the Twitter feed, I thought was brilliant. Like pump her out there, social media, all the social channels that they can, all of the third-party coverage that they can. Like she's that level of star that they need to present as such, and I like it. And it doesn't surprise me with them. That's their first big signing since the Endeavor deal, right? That they presented her like UFC signing a major star, right? Like to me, that it fits in line with the type of promotion that this is going to be now.
Right. I think the last signing, last WWE signing of somebody who did not go to NXT, I might be wrong, but is that AJ Styles at the Rumble? Of somebody who's never been in WWE.
I think it may be. Richie,
I think it's AJ. I literally think everybody else.
Was he the last one? I feel like it probably was.
He was the last one where I know he said he wouldn't mind it, but they were hindered for star power at that point, so they just put him into the main roster and said, "All right, let's see if you sink or swim," and he swam. But with the story of Jade Cargill being on the kickoff show as she did was very smart for a couple reasons. One, gets her out there, gets her face out there to a new audience to see what she's like, and also throwing her out there when the, you could call them competition, the alternative, whatever, they're having their own show at the same time, so that's taking up the Twitter feed as well. Yeah. So it's a very smart chess move on the part of WWE. As far as presenting her like a big star right off the bat, this is something we haven't seen probably ever with someone who doesn't have the WWE or independent notoriety. And I think we're going to see a lot more signings that come from AEW to WWE, get more of this treatment, just so there's no weariness from AEW to go over to WWE, because we've seen a lot of WWE stars go to AEW. Yeah, right. Some of it was by choice. Some of it was due to them being released, what have you. But with people now slowly from AEW filtering over to WWE, with Cody being probably the most important one and pretty much legitimately probably the first one, the first real one that really said, oh, wow. And now Jade's coming. And now you're going to have Brian Pillman Jr., who's in NXT right now. And if they do something great with him on that brand, it's going to give some people who don't have the look of a Jade Cargill or the background of Brian Pillman Jr., who they didn't do much with in AEW, a little less being reserved of going to WWE instead of the horror stories they've had where it's like you'll be restricted. But now, as long as they let them be somewhat of a similar character than they were in AEW, that would erase all hesitation. I think promoting Jade Cargill is a very brilliant move, and especially on a pay-per-view night such as this.
It's a different time too. Sorry, Tim, just real quick. It's a different era and style. Like, it's hard to compare now to 2016 is ancient. You know what I mean? Like, it's Triple H in for whatever he's got for power, he's getting power, right? Of creative. Vince is back with some say, but when you look at the week-to-week booking, it still very much feels like we're where we've been over the last year or so with Triple H in charge. And so I think things are going to have to be considered different. Then you layer in like Nick Khan's influence, you layer in Endeavor's influence. Like, this is a very different company than it was. Plus the competition, to your point, Richie. It's like 2016, we didn't have AEW at this level, right? So there's going to be different levels of gamesmanship and presentation in place than when they were the only game in town and they could send everyone to NXT because they were like, whatever, we got no competition. We're going to break down all these dudes and make them, work our style. Now they're like, okay, well, AEW exists. We have to treat things a little bit differently. And it's a new era. Endeavor's going to have different goals in place for what we need to do and be. So we're going to work accordingly. So, like, it's hard to even look at this as being anything. And our buddy Andy Atherton, on YouTube said the same, just on the same topic, said she's also the first homegrown AEW wrestler to go to WWE. And to your point, Richard, like you mentioned, Pillman, been on the indies for a while, etc. Jade really is like the first AEW person that came up through their system to jump ship. So that's a big deal too.
Right.
Are you guys surprised they kept her name?
I'm not at all.
Okay.
Like, it's such a unique name, especially Jade. I'm glad they're keeping Jade. But Ryan, I want to go to you. There's a notable saying across the world, or across, that's known by everybody. Those who don't know their history are bound to repeat it. And JT, this is going to sound something that you're very familiar with. You're going through the Monday Night Wars right now, through Wrestling Warzone. And we're kind of following a very similar path of that time frame where WCW is the very hungry talent acquisition, grabbing old WWF superstars and putting them on their main roster. And what has AEW done in this time? Tall Paul, Mark Henry, Christian, Edge, Big Cass,
Adam Cole.
Adam Cole, Roderick, like literally the entire Undisputed Era. Even CM Punk to a certain degree has that notoriety of WWE. And then now WWE, it is coming back around. And like, there's only been 2, but depending on how well Jade Cargill is treated, those other homegrown stars, if AEW doesn't know what to do with them, WWE will know exactly what to do with like a Ricky Starks.
And your Foley, your Austin, your Vader, your Goldust, right? Like all those guys that got pushed out when Hogan and Savage, etc., came in. So it's going to be similar. You're going to have, a lot of the original AEW stars are going to suddenly be out of a push, right, at the expense of these guys.
It's almost like a reverse of the WWF WCW deal with the talent. And what I mean by this is, in WCW, led the narrative WWF or WWE did in all their documentaries, were the cruiserweights. The cruiserweights were being held down from ascending to their heights. But now, if you see in AEW, it's the more inexperienced wrestlers or the heavyweights that haven't been getting as much opportunity for storylines, like a Wardlow, like a Powerhouse Hobbs. Thankfully, they're doing something with him now. maybe a Ricky Starks to a degree, where his face turn didn't really mean as much at that point in time. And it's going to come to a point where those guys, if they hypothetically do make that jump, WWE knows exactly how to market them. They know how to play to their strengths while also improving on the things that they might be weaker in. So it's going to be a very interesting time when you're going to see those AEW contracts lapse or expire.
Very much so. Very, very much so. I think you kind of Logan kind of answers that question right behind Andy's comment of who's going to be this generation's Jericho from mid card WCW to main event WWF, and Logan goes ahead and answers right behind, and you got to think Starks is going to make the move. I think Ricky Starks is easily the best player comp, right? Somebody who's super creative, who is super charismatic, is solid in the ring, has a look, has a pizzazz about him, and I think it really steals his opportunities when the red light's on with the camera on. I don't think there's really anybody else in AEW that ticks all of those boxes and is still in that not overexposed area. Yeah. Right. There's still a lot of people in AEW, but they're people who've been there since day one, and they're people who have been who were the people who started the company, right? Hangman Page, Kenny Omega. Those people are kind of
go look at those first couple of pay-per-views, and it's like they have churned a lot of guys and girls through there that were kind of their building blocks in the early days as they've started to add the bigger name guys that have jumped or shown up, and once they get established. So yeah, those folks are going to go somewhere, and it's like there's only so much room in AEW. They already have how many hours of TV right at this point, and it's like you can only keep adding so much to focus on these different wrestlers. So.
And even adding another company to AEW, because last year they bought Ring of Honor, or a year or two ago they bought Ring of Honor, and I think that's started kind of like the downturn of AEW in some respects, because you have that built-in AEW audience, and then you're mentioning Ring of Honor. It's like, okay, what exactly is Ring of Honor? Yeah. And this is coming from people who were lapsed fans from wrestling who probably didn't even know what Ring of Honor is, and without Ring of Honor, we wouldn't have a lot of the talent we do see today. But with AEW buying Ring of Honor, and I'm kind of going off topic, but with I think the focus for Ring of Honor really did hurt AEW, because they were trying to get it a television deal for a while, which is why I think, this is my own conspiracy theory, why Jericho won the ROH championship, and this is around when Punk kind of had that locker room skirmish the first time, and they were really trying to get that Ring of Honor championship its own deal on Warner Brother TV, and then it didn't work because it was treated kind of like a backdoor pilot you would for a TV show, but instead of an episode of a backdoor pilot, it was an entire season of backdoor pilots that got off the track of the entire season. It's like having the show Arrow, and this, instead of the Green Arrow being the main character, all of a sudden Cyborg's the main character for all of it, and then you're back to just Arrow again. You know what I mean? So it was just, that's what I think really stopped AEW's momentum. And because of that, because of trying to build up this old but new company again, a lot of guys got lost in the shuffle. And now you're going to see someone possibly like a Starks, like a Wardlow, like all those homegrown guys jump ship to see if the grass is really greener on the other side.
They should have probably just funded ROH and I had someone completely separate and leave it completely separate. And I think that would have been a better approach, and then use it as a feeder ground, like the old, we're talking 97, right? WWF ECW relationship where, they can bounce back and forth a little bit, kind of who's funding it, but it's not present constantly on screen, as it's like almost an equal promotion that they're running both of.
I bet Tony Khan, if he could have gone into a time machine, he'd have been like, you know what? Maybe I don't start AEW. Maybe if I wait long enough, Ring of Honor will be available and I can get it pennies on the dollar. And then I can use an established brand and try to do something with it. But this is not the ROH podcast. We're talking about WWE Fastlane. There's plenty of ROH topics, both like across everywhere. But getting it back
we're
to
back. Oh, I
Fastlane.
was sleeping. Sorry.
I know. I tried to pitch it to you, and then everybody just jumped on the hot topic. But I will pitch to you. Is there anything that you think didn't live up to expectations? I know we talk so much here on Viewers Choice about like must watch and must skip. Is there anything? I know it's a very tight card, and it's hard to say that there's something that's not worth the time to go watch. But if you would think that there's anything, what would you think kind of didn't deliver on the expectations of you as a viewer going in before?
As a whole, take out that Carlito return and surprise, so to speak. That match was just kind of heatless. It was off the heart opener. It was kind of slotted in a rough spot, and you had the 2-on-3 advantage. You knew something was happening, so you were just kind of getting like mindless heat that was just kind of going nowhere, and it was really boring. So, leading up to the Carlito pop, which was pretty well done, I would skip that match. Fast forward to the Carlito pop, and not to railroad over you guys about that, but just to jump to the women's match, it was like kind of the SummerSlam light, where it had good moments, but it just felt off and clunky. It just felt that all girls were just not in sync. It just felt that they were beat off each other. They just felt out of rhythm. They just felt like they were receivers and quarterbacks kind of day one there a little bit. So it just felt that it was a tad off, despite having good moments. I thought the finish was cool. You anticipated Bailey coming down the whole time. So, us smart, whatever kind of hardened fans kind of saw hurt those two matches were hurt by us foreseeing things developing there. So if we had to go watch one, skip one between those two, Richie, what would you think?
But I do agree with what you said about the LWO, the Almighty Prophets match. Just basically,
I like that name.
I just made it up.
You're out here geniusing, baby. I love it.
Landon said the hurt
plant seeds. But like you said, the 2-on-3, like it's compelling at points. Like Zelina Vega got a good spot in there. It's just like everyone's always gonna anticipate for who's gonna be the partner. You know what I mean? If you don't put it in right away, so that the spots in the match aren't gonna mean as much until you get to that last guy joining in. There's actually a funny video they put on Twitter of Carlito just waiting backstage to get his music hit, and then it's just like, well, I thought couldn't he just come out a little bit earlier? Why are we showing it? Yeah, the women's match. I wouldn't say skip, but because they all of them worked hard. The confusing thing for me about the women's match is there's no clear good guy or protagonist in this match, to me at least, when the story was being presented. And it just kind of got finicky. Like, is Io Sky trying to be separate herself from Bailey, so is she the baby face? But then you have Charlotte saying that Io Sky's kind of like taking her shine, so is she trying to turn Bailey baby face? So the story just kind of got clunky, and then Asuka's kind of in there, kind of being like a third wheel, but not really a third wheel because she's the former champion. It just kind of just the storyline was just kind of.
It's like a lot of characters in transition. They're in a weird spot right now, which hurt the overall flow of the match, I think.
Yeah,
it was pretty much.
I think for me, I'm grading the two as based on expectations. My expectations for the 6-man were not very high, right? But my expectations of an Io Sky, Asuka, Charlotte Flair triple threat match for a title are significantly higher. I think Charlotte really brought her A game, but I don't feel that the triple threats are sneaky hard, right? It's the really good ones stand out because it was so they hit everything. Where most triple threat matches, of course, you find that formula of who's going to get out of the ring, and then you make it to like a one-on-one, right? But I think Charlotte really brought it. And I just feel like Asuka and Io were just maybe like a half step. It didn't sync up. to me, that's a more skippable match because I'm more excited to see that match, and I'd be more let down watching it and it not quite living up to that expectations. Where the 6-man, I can go on Twitter, I can see Carlito's back, Jack Body Guy, LWO's back to full strength minus Bad Bunny, and things are cool, right? That match was a tweet, right?
Yep.
And the triple threat is something where, like, even the story's a bit confusing, where EO's like, Bailey, I don't want Bailey at ringside, I have a plan, but then it is exactly Bailey that's the reason why EO wins.
And also the match with Charlotte being the towering, like she's the tallest girl and the strongest girl in the match, and she has to fight from underneath. So it just was a little bit confusing there. And I would like to see Charlotte in the future have a storyline that's not revolved around the championship, because that's what I feel like she's always revolved around.
Either she's in the title picture or she's not on TV.
Yeah, because I feel like she could do more dynamic storylines. It's just about like giving her that opportunity.
Right. I think it's tough. I think Logan asked the question of Charlotte's been a bit off in the return. I think until tonight, I think she was really good tonight. But I you'd never want to question somebody's motivation. But Charlotte has been like the focal point of the women's division since being called up and winning the then Divas Championship. It is tough to stay creatively motivated and creatively satisfied when you have done everything. And while women have been showcased more, they have definitely been showcased better than before. I think there's still long ways to go because WWE hasn't been able to show me. I think you guys might have lost me there. I'm sorry. I feel as though WWE has not found a way to showcase women in storylines that don't revolve the title. I don't think I've seen a single women's program that didn't revolve a title at all.
Just Trish and Becky coming off of that, and then that's all I can really think of there.
That's it. And it's Becky Lynch who's height of powers, right? Like she's got borderline like male roster heat, and so
it begs the question that's been around for a while. Like, I know we talked about Ring of Honor at AEW, like taking up, like, should the women have their own world, right? Like, and that's not to say to, because the thought's always been, well, then that presents them as different, but no, it can be equally as good, right? But like, should they have their own allotted time and own allotted show? We saw they did one pay-per-view and it was awesome, right? But that's a small sample size. So do they have the ability to book an all women's program? And you don't have to take them off of Raw or SmackDown. You could put one or two of the best, top feuds or matches to showcase them on there, but then also give them their own 90 minutes or hour or 2 hour, whatever it is, to also, get a lot more time, have longer matches, and use some of these feuds.
They do that in NXT a lot of the times, where it's not promoted as an all women show. They'll just book the matches, and it's just so happens that all women are in those matches. So
I wouldn't be opposed to giving them like a 205 Live style show, or it's.
That's what I mean. Like let them say, even if it's like a breeding ground show, whatever that show was called. Can't think of the word, but like, where they're like, it's maybe not the top of the top, but it's those that are fighting to get their way to like the title picture that kind of don't have that going on. And maybe a Becky or Charlotte comes down, I guess, similar to what they're doing with the story in NXT with Tiff Stratton and Becky, right? So something along those lines where they use the show for new women coming up, or ones trying to get reestablished and trying to make their mark, and they track wins and losses and stuff, and you win it, and you win the month, or you win this whatever, you go up to Raw, you get a title shot. So there's other ways to get the women in the mix, Tim, to meet your goal of just, we have a SmackDown women's title feud and a Raw women's title feud, and then here and there we have other matches, but no major stories.
If I was Triple H, I'd say write me an email about it. We'll talk later.
All right, I'll get on it.
Yeah. As we're coming up on the hour here, and I know everybody's got a nice Sunday morning of football lined up in front of them. let's go around the horn. Who do you guys think is the MVP of Fastlane? We'll start with the King, JT.
LA Knight. He did what Ryan I said he needed to do. He needed to stand next to John Cena. John Cena needed to hit a move. LA Knight needs to be the one to get the pinfall, not John Cena, and then stand tall John Cena. That's the image you want coming out of that show. And my alternative to John Cena versus Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel, LA Knight is LA Knight versus John Cena in a respect match. And Knight beats him, and Cena says, okay, you've done, now you've beaten me. We've won as a team. You've beaten me. Now you're ready to go be the man. That's what I would do at Crown Jewel. And, Cena has said, I guess he said in the post press conference, like, once the strike is over, I'm out of here. I can't do both. So maybe can you squeak by it and hope you get the Crown Jewel where he's still around, and then you have LA go over him. It's not a heel turn. It's nothing like that. It's just Cena says, you got one more thing before I give you the torch. You got to pin me.
Right. Ryan, what you got?
Yeah.
MVP.
I would go Cody Rhodes. He finally finished his story. He's a champion. But no, I'm just kidding. Cody Rhodes, but just because he's able to continue a lot of stories and open up old stories and perhaps open up new stories. So overall, Cody Rhodes as a conductor of whatever to continue the flow of WWE TV.
Nice. We started with you, Richie. We're going to bring it around to you. MVP of the night. What do you got?
Seth Rollins.
Nice.
He's done a great job with the World Heavyweight Championship. He's not my favorite wrestler, but you have to respect what he's done with probably an impossible situation of trying to make a something championship that nobody gave a second look at into something with opponents that weren't necessarily built up the best, and he still made that World Heavyweight Championship mean something and different from what you're seeing with Roman Reigns. And I think he was the right guy for the job, and he's continuing riding the ride.
For sure. My jokey pick, Xavier Woods, coming through with pizza during the show. What a man. He's clutch. My real answer, LA Knight. Hottest reaction. Got to rub shoulders with the king, the star, the greatest of all time, quote unquote. Can't go wrong with LA Knight as your MVP. Of course, this is just the viewer's choice. The choice is always yours. A big thank you to JT and Richie and Ryan for joining us. Of course, you're catching us on the NoSo. We have podcasts dropping all the time. We've got content dropping on the YouTube all the time. Subscribe wherever you can. Like the videos that you see on the YouTube. Let us know what you guys want us to cover in certain regards. JT, you can catch him on almost everything on the NoSo YouTube channel, whether it's Wrestling Warzone, whether it's WWE War, whether it's No Holds Barred, whether it's What If stuff. He's all over the board, and all of it is fantastic. Ryan, of course, is our guru with anything like modern day WWE, doing our hard-hitting pre-show analysis, covering everything, as well as steering that ship for NoSo too. He's peppering in some of that. He's got salt for the modern day. He's got pepper for the old school. Keeping things going with NoSo. And of course, Richie, I'm very pleased with everything you got. I want to see you around more often. The next time I'll be back here with Viewer's Choice, Marcus and I will be for, I think it'll probably be Crown Jewel. Is it Crown Jewel? Did they say it was Crown Jewel? It's Crown Jewel. It's the new Saudi show. We got Saudi, we've got Full Gear, and we've got Survivor Series back to back to back. It's going to be a fun time. Always something to cover on the NoSo. Boys, thank you so much for joining us. You all watching, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, thank you for watching us as well. And we will be back right before you know it. But have a good night. Have a good weekend. And we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.